Welcome to the Soul Vanguard channel. Today we talk about the possible new mechanic for Vanguard. So lately, with the release of a new season of Vanguard and them saying G is gonna end, I have been thinking very long and hard about what a new mechanic will be. So this video will be a little bit rambly. I have no script. I'm just gonna try to give you my thoughts and some popular thoughts that I think are totally wrong, and we'll see how it goes. So first of all, you have to imagine what Bushiroad has been doing lately compared to the past, and then see where things might be going. So for one, some people say, hey, it might be grade 4 in the own deck and then grade 5, but everything Bushiroad has been doing has been anti-variance so far compared to the earlier eras. In the earlier eras, you had to ride up from 1 to 2 to 3, and if you missed your ride, you just lost. Everything was about riding up, and not being able to was just a death sentence. Because the game was less complex and there were less interactions, a lot of it actually depended on the amount of trigger sacking you did. As the game progresses, they have been diminishing that. G guards were another way to give you a better guard option. Certain levels of power creep could be decreased, while simultaneously also making you able to guard more of those trigger sacky possible moments. It also added more interactions into the game and less RNG overall. So the whole idea of we're going to put grade 4s and grade 5s in the deck is ludicrous to me, because that just adds even more variance. It makes it so there's a higher chance of you not being able to ride. It makes decks less consistent, and so for that reason I don't think they will try to do that. I think they will stay in an extra zone kind of thing, or at least make it so variance doesn't increase but somehow decrease. Secondly, if we look at how they went from Legion to G, that jump was actually done terribly, because almost everything Legion wise became pretty meh. There were some decks that remained good, like Abyss, Stingsaver. I think Shanoir Tester Fox still did some stuff once Kat Paluch came out. Then you had D-Robo with Laurel stuff that still did some things. But overall, most Legion decks were like total trash immediately. Everyone started over with G decks, apart from the few. And so I believe they won't do that again, because we did saw a dip in player excitement around that time. Myself included, a lot of people actually quit around the Legion era and only came back later into the G era. So given that with G guards they added a new level of interaction into the game, I think we could see something like that. Imagine if we added a new level of hand trap into the game. Let's say discard a stand or discard a draw trigger and then get some kind of effect. Whether that is something like a trap hole, your opponent plays a rear guard and it just vanishes, or stops an effect from going off, or maybe even stops a trigger from working. Things like that could be interesting for the game if you then tie other effects into that. So that's a possibility. However, that doesn't feel like a new season kind of mechanic. No one is gonna get excited about, whoa, there is more strategy into the game. There is nothing selling about that. People want some major new beast or monster or thing. It's not very competitive, but do realize that these games sell because of the overall casual player base being the majority. So they need something like Legion and Stride, something big, wow, the big monster, something like that. And then later on, they can add the depth with the mechanics, with the hand trap stuff like G guards. With that in mind, we also need to remember that it has to be better than G, because if it isn't, there is no point to even buying those cards over the ones that are currently out. A game always has to power creep or make rotation, or some heavy bans that make G terrible so that the new cards are then better. One of those three always have to be the case. Either a heavy ban list, rotation, or power creep. So in this case, I think we're going to go for power creep. That's what Bushi has been doing all the time. However, it can't be so blatant that every G deck becomes trash. And so how do you make a new mechanic that's better than G, while simultaneously not making every G card total trash? And I think the answer is a new kind of rear guard that you can summon from another place than your hand or deck. A rear guard, let's say, that you put in the G zone and that you can call before grade 3. Imagine if, just like Yu-Gi-Oh!, the new decks allowed you to go off way faster into the game, and then as the game progresses, you get to your strides. Let's say both players are on grade 1, you can fuse a grade 1 and a grade 1 together to make something, whatever the hell it may be. A new unit, and that unit is super powerful, the game gets a little bit more rushy, but then you also get other cards to be more defensive. And then that way, progress into the stride game. So by the time you hit grade 3, you would have some cards face up in the G zone, so cards like Alexandros, such strides would be better immediately. But the damage counts would be higher already, people would have bigger hands already because of all of the effects from the new cards that already came from your G-Zone in the early game. So I don't know how they would exactly implement that. There are so many ways they could do that. But so my hypothesis is that the new cards will be summoned in the early game before the whole Stride and Legion limit, so that way rush decks from now aren't still superior, because imagine if the new mechanic is something like Stride, both have to be a grade 3. You could just play your deleter deck and still win. So the new mechanic also has to get around rush. The new mechanic has to be a superior kind of rush that then progresses into your late game where you still have your strides and your G guards. That's what I think is gonna happen. That's how Yu-Gi-Oh! Did it. That's how Magic kinda did it, apart from their early days where they just had blatantly OP cards. But overall, the games have progressed to a point where you can do crazy plays faster and faster and faster with more interaction. So that's my thought. I think we are going to see some kind of card you can summon earlier from somewhere that isn't your hand, so that you don't clog up your hand with these cards that you can't ride, because you want to ride consistency. The 1, 2, 3 still has to be a thing unless we can start from 3 or something. The ride variance has to remain the same or become better, and simultaneously more things should happen in the early game so that rush decks don't stay better than GB decks, and so that the new mechanic is still better than GB whilst not making all those cards totally worthless. That's what I think is gonna happen. I think afterwards we will start seeing things like discard a draw trigger to do some kind of hand trap to add some more interaction into the game, but for now that's where I'm betting. Regardless, I hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel and click that bell button. Finally, let me know in the comments down below what you think will be the new mechanic for Vanguard. I will see you soon. Ciao!